Thank you for joining me here on The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alexei Toliopoulos, talk to cool, interesting, exciting, wonderful people about their favorite movies. And we have got a wonderful bonus episode for you guys today. I was very lucky enough to sit down with Alfred Gough and Miles Millar, the creators of the TV show on Netflix, Wednesday, which is, as you know, one of the biggest shows in the world, starring Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams, the titular Wednesday in the Wednesday show. And I had such a great time talking with Al and Miles. They hold the knowledge to a very specific thing that I've wanted to talk about for so long. If you've been following my career, you would remember my show with Cameron James, Total Reboot. We talked about reboots, remakes, ripoffs, and I became completely fascinated by sequels and adaptations in film and TV. And Al and Miles are genuine experts of the adaptation. It's not just Wednesday being a reincarnation of the Addams family. They also created Smallville, which is a new take on Superman that was a big show for me growing up. And then they also had done such a tonally diverse group of sequels, from Lethal Weapon 4 to The Mummy 3 to Spider-Man 2, one of the greatest films of that genre ever. But even more so, one that I'm so glad they start talking about in this episode that you're about to hear. They start talking about getting on board and signing up to Herbie Fully Loaded, the Lindsay Lohan, Herbie, Kurt Russell vehicle. And when I say vehicle, the vehicle I'm referring to is Herbie, the love bug. So this is like a great quick bite episode. We get to talk about so much about their career, talk about Wednesday. I was also very honored to hold a big in conversation with Alfred Gough and Miles Millar and the series director of that, Tim Burton, in Sydney at NIDA, the National Institute of Dramatic Arts. So it was such a treat to be able to talk to these people about their work. In particular, of course, Tim Burton, who crafted probably some of the first cinematic images and iconography that made me fall in love with film. It was such a great talk. So I'm so glad you're going to get a little bit of a taste of it by me getting to go a little bit deeper in with Alfred Gough and Miles Millar. So let's get straight into our chat with Alfred Gough and Miles Millar, the creators of Wednesday. Thank you for joining me here inside The Last Video Store.
Great to be here.
It's looking a little bit different than it normally does, but the vibe is still here. It's still the same vibe. I want to ask you guys, kick things off, do you have any video store memories? Do you have a favorite video store, somewhere that meant something to you?
Wow, well, we were definitely the video store generation.
Yes.
So like the first wave of video store. And I grew up in a small town in Maryland, and a couple of them popped up. Half of them seemed to be porn, and then the other half was, regular. And I think the one I remember the most was when E.T. came out on video, and I love that movie. It's the movie that made me want to be in movies. And but these video stores only had like a couple. This was before Blockbuster, where they had 50,000 of them. So
independent style.
They were all independent, all kind of mom and pop. And it was always interesting to get, to find a movie and to sort of get in there early enough certainly on the weekend, to kind of snap them up before they all got taken. And then there's movies you remember, like the movie I remember, I never actually saw it, but there was one called, it was an Angel, and she was like honor student by day, Hollywood hooker by night.
Yes, I would tell you, I have seen them. Worth watching.
Worth watching. Okay.
They are fun.
Yes. Yeah,
and that's proper video store classic.
I just remember that box.
The box is great.
The box was genius.
Yeah. And how about yourself?
Well, I think for me, and I was a video store junkie, but the best was I grew up in the UK. I grew up in Australia first. Moved to the UK when I was 9, and in the UK they had this thing called video nasties, which
Oh,
are movies that were banned.
Yes.
And my mom used to get them from this like shady guy at the market in
Your
Soho.
mum used to bring them in for you.
So she was any pirate video she'd get and be very happy. We had Pirate E.T., we had all the video nasties. So I remember having Evil Dead for like my 13th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Which was like just it was a crappy, like shaky, like someone had taken it in the video. Like it was like, but it was
A proper bootleg.
it was a complete bootleg.
Yeah.
But she'd come back and say, I got Evil Dead for you guys. It was incredible.
Wow.
But
I
yeah.
gotta say, we're like 2 minutes in. You guys are some of the best guests I've ever had on this show. This is, I can't believe it. One thing I really want to talk to you guys about is when I look at your work, I think adaptation is something that really stands out. From Superman and Smallville to sequels that are so tonally diverse from each other. Herbie, Lethal Weapon, The Mummy,
Thanks for
and of
bringing up
course
Herbie.
The Beetlejuice.
Herbie.
Yeah.
But I think I really think of you guys as experts of adaptation. Can I ask you what is your approach to taking a character or property and trying to find something new with it?
Well, each project is different. And I know, speaking of Herbie, that was a movie that we were brought in 4 weeks before it was shooting. And we had to do a complete kind of overhaul of the movie. And what's interesting is that in that script, what they forgot about was Herbie. And so it was the idea that you have this magic car.
This sounds weird, but it's true.
It's weird, but
He wasn't.
he had no personality.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Zero
no presence
personality.
in the script.
No presence in the script. And they were treating him like it was this thing that everybody knew about. And we're like, no, it's not. He is a car. This is a girl with a secret who finds this car, and then the car confounds everybody. So it was like, I think a lot of it is you have to get back to what initially made the thing successful. Like, what is at its core and at its essence? And I think we always try to do that. Like, even with Smallville, like, that was before like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or any of these things. Like, we would never be allowed to do that.
Yeah, we always
today.
talk about this. There's such corporate control over all the comic books and those characters that we would never have the freedom today to do what we did, because it was a pretty radical.
It was a radical thing, but we say, one generation.
Superman without Superman.
Superman
No,
without
that's right.
Superman.
And it's like it sounds so absurd now.
Yeah.
By the way, the last iteration of before Smallville had been
Lois and
Clark, which had been like derided. So it was like, by the way, it was easy to get.
Yeah.
They were like, no one wanted to buy it.
No one wanted it, and then we sold it to this network in America called the WB, which did a lot of youth stuff.
They had Buffy and
they did Buffy and
Gilmore Girls.
Dawson's Creek and all those things. And the head of the network at the time, who we know, we could see in the pitch, like, she's like, I'm not going to buy this. And then she heard the pitch and she was like, oh my God, this is actually good.
She couldn't help it.
Yeah.
No,
and
we knew that going in, they didn't want to buy it.
We didn't want to buy it.
That's not for us.
Yeah. And then we were able to do it. But I think with that was, you kept the essence of who Superman is and the essence of Lex Luthor, but then you can tell a whole different story. And I think you always have to find a reason to be for these movies. Beetlejuice was another one. It's like they've been trying to crack that code for 35 years. And it was, how do you keep the things that people love? What is the essence of it? But then what is the new story that you're telling so that it feels...
So it stands by itself. That was the challenge of that movie. It was like, if you've never seen Beetlejuice, have no idea what it is, you can still go into that movie and enjoy it. And there's still actually a story.
Yes.
There's a story with the General Ortega character and a boy she meets and what that story is. And then it's about it's a mother-daughter story. So it's like, what's the heart of the story and how do you create characters that have complexity and interest and develop over the course of the story? So I think it always starts for us from a point of view of character in terms of what's the character journey through the story.
Yeah, like Spider-Man 2 was, we had done Smallville and they called us. It was literally like a month after Smallville premiered, and they had the first movie and they're like, what are we going to do for the second movie? Which is always funny with movies, because television shows, especially in the old days, were the whole TV show is like one long second act of a movie. So our approach to that one was, with great power comes great responsibility, but what if you never wanted the responsibility? And would you be willing to give up the power to have your old life back? And then he kind of got what we call superhero erectile dysfunction and couldn't function properly. That was the premise of it. We're like, because that's what would the next chapter in that journey be?
The next challenge.
The next challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Wednesday, what was that essence of, like a pretty dormant property.
Yeah.
And finding a new way in through character as well, taking something that's an ensemble, finding the protagonist. Can you talk about finding that essence as well?
Well, it was one, we thought she was the most interesting and iconic character from that family, and we'd been looking to do something that was more, I guess, comedic. We'd done the show called Into the Badlands, which is a martial arts, super violent show, which we shot in Dublin, and we'd done like a high fantasy called the Shannara Chronicles, Austin Butler in New Zealand, and we just thought, okay, let's just get back to basics, do something simple. We want to do some more, get back to comedy as well, and we thought that Wednesday was really interesting. I got 2 daughters, Al has 2 teenage daughters, so it felt like, we know these kind of, this kind of world, the female experience from our own point of view, and it just felt like a really interesting, unexplored element that you'd never seen Teenage Wednesday.
Yeah, you hadn't seen Teenage Wednesday, but it was still the idea of, so the first idea was Teenage Wednesday Addams in high school. But we realized that if you put her in a normal high school, that show is over quickly, which is kind of what the teaser of the first episode is.
The Piranhas.
And we wanted to keep it because you really had only seen the Addams family in the house.
Yes.
But we're like, so how do you take Wednesday out of the family, put her in a boarding school, which will become like a found family, which is what happens most teenage experiences. You leave your family and then you meet your friends and they become your new family. But you wanted to keep the essence of an Addams family world. So that's where we came up. And if we looked at the Charles Addams panels, and they have all these other characters in the background, all these weird creatures and stuff. So we said, okay, there's a world out there of outcasts, this is what we called them. And so we said, well, what if there was a school that outcasts went to, but then even in that school, she is the most outcastiest of the outcasts.
And I love that idea of it's embracing the fantasy that's already there, but it was kind of hidden away in other adaptations of those original comics.
It was really going right back to the source, which we did with we did not a lot of research. We definitely went back to the original comics and we looked at all the different iterations of Superman. And here we looked at actually Charles Addams' original New Yorker panels, his cartoon, literally single panels he did, which had been compiled into a book. I mean, it just really was a revelation to see that actually there was a lot more to this than had been explored or mined. So we went back and really figured out how to build the world of the show. And what was also interesting, that even there'd been a sitcom in the 60s and the Barry Sonnenfeld movies in the 90s, they didn't really get into any mythology. There's no real Addams family mythology, which is great.
And it's also how did they exist in our world? We like Smallville was kind of Superman with paperwork. Like you had to explain, you have all these givens, right? Like he crashed in a rocket. Well, if he crashed in 1989, there'd be satellites that would find him. So we created the meteor shower that covered it. And then that gave us, that it leads to
that led to and then we got in trouble with the Freak of the Week. So I was like, well,
that's what happened.
Superman's going to be doing something each week.
But it was
TV
always
show.
It's the super, but it was, and I think with the
right, it's always like, what the hell?
I know.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the engine. You created
that's
the engine for it, right?
It's the engine, and it gives you, and it also, gave him.
It's also what Superman did. I mean, Superman is involved in heroic endeavors. So
I mean, thousands of them. There's thousands of issues. You know, it's the same thing. Same story engine.
But it was interesting with that because somebody told us, and at the time we did not know what it meant. They'd go, "Oh, you did the Marvel Comics version of Superman, which is you gave him humanity and you gave him guilt,
a little angst,
and some angst."
I want to talk to you guys about collaboration as well, because when I think of the greatest collaborations that I've had with collaborative partners, I always think of it as one, you have access to ideas your brain can't even generate. And the other one is finding someone that can kind of fill the gaps that you don't have, or have each other's strengths and each other's strengths to kind of build something together. Can you talk about your collaboration with each other and what are those gaps that you fill?
No, we've been writing together. We've been friends for 33 years and writing together for 32. So
it's a long time.
It's a long time, and it's definitely, we used to write together. When we were just starting out and nobody was hiring us, we would meet every day, but we always treated it like a job, like a career, is we punch in, we do the work, and we got along and we had similar tastes in the things we liked, but also different tastes. We have different experiences, and so I think it was always a good kind of melding of those things. And it's I think too, you develop a process with each other where we know, if we get together, we know we'll make this thing better. We'll iterate it. It'll get better. We'll come to the better version of it. Because I think a lot of times with writers, you have an idea in your head, but then when you say it out loud, it suddenly sounds different. When you have to pitch it to somebody, and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe, So I think that's something
it
else.
evolves over time, and I think when you get into, we've also produced a lot of stuff together, so you have different skill sets on set and different skill sets in the writer's room. So it's just, the highs and lows of being a working writer or anybody in Hollywood is very tough.
Yeah.
And you'd have, this is an amazing, moment on top of the roller coaster, but wait 6 months and we're right back down. So it's like there's no there. So I think for us to have someone to go through this sort of incredible ride that we've gone on through our career, it's makes a huge difference just as a shoulder to cry on, but also someone to share the great highs, of which Wednesday is one of them, obviously.
Yeah, that's very beautifully put. Well, I'd love to also ask you about your collaboration with Tim Burton, because you've had these 2 seasons of the Wednesday show working with him now, and also the Beetlejuice sequel. What's your working relationship with him like, and what's your process like together?
Well, it's been, we've been working with him for over 5 years.
Yeah.
And, we've been working on this show from inception for 7 years. So it was like he came into it 2 years into it. We'd already written the first 4 scripts, and it was one of those, he'd always been top of mind. This felt like the perfect Tim Burton show.
Yeah.
But that said, he'd never done TV. And everyone said, he's never going to do TV. So
He'll never do
dream on, guys.
Yeah.
So, but, we're very persistent, and we got it to his agent. His agent loved it. He got it to Tim, and literally 4 days later, we got a call saying Tim loved it. He wants to FaceTime with you guys. And this was during COVID. He was in quarantine in England. We were in LA in quarantine. And we FaceTimed, and he was staying at his place. It's this beautiful place in Oxford with this huge garden, and he has these life-size dinosaur sculptures. So he's got like 25 dinosaurs, like a T-Rex, a Brontosaurus.
Very on brand.
So he's walking around.
You're working into the world here.
Literally, it's like he's walking around talking to us. There's a dinosaur behind him. Hey, I love your script, guys. It's amazing. And I sort of would have fallen in love with Wednesday at high school. She would have been my girlfriend, and it just felt like we'd written the show for him.
Yeah.
So it was just from the first conversation, like he loved the idea we'd done TV, and he'd never done long form storytelling before, but was really intrigued. Yeah. So it was just, we didn't meet until like 8 months later when we did a
location scout.
Yeah, in Romania. We shot the first season in Romania, which also felt very on brand for Tim.
Yeah.
And we had this great, he just said, well, we were going to shoot in Canada initially, and then we couldn't afford it. So we spent a frantic weekend trying to find somewhere to shoot the show. We ended up, Romania was the only place that had enough like sound stages that were big enough.
Wow.
And we thought, Tim's
we're like Bucharest. And people were like, Budapest? We're like, no.
Bucharest.
Bucharest.
And we thought, okay, we got to how do we persuade Tim to go to Bucharest to shoot the show?
It's kind of near Transylvania, maybe.
No, it did. So we say, Tim, we got some news. We're not going to shoot in Canada now. We're going to shoot in Bucharest, Romania. And he goes, oh. And he picks up his phone and he shows us over the Zoom. It's a picture of him and Alice Cooper outside Dracula's castle, and they'd gone on a guy weekend together to see Dracula's castle.
Oh, wow.
Because I love Romania, so it was like, oh my god. So he was like, actually it was even better because the studios outside Bucharest are this like Soviet era. They're completely abandoned. They're huge, but they're abandoned like weeds. Packs of wild dogs, I kid you not.
Wow.
Wild dogs.
And Tim was in his element. He loved it. There was no one. There was like studio didn't fly into to snoop.
Nobody could get to him.
Yeah, it was just like it was our own playground.
Yes.
So it worked out,
Yeah.
brilliantly. And then the Ukraine war happened next door, which wasn't so great.
Yeah, not so great. But
It was.
you realize how close Chernobyl is to Bucharest.
Yeah.
If they hit that. But
It sounds like quite similar atmosphere the way you're describing it.
But no, it was good. And then while we were on set, he asked us to write Beetlejuice, the Beetlejuice sequel. So it's just been
But what is great about Tim is he's a lot of directors see, you hand them the script and then it's like their job to rip it apart, their job to, imprint themselves on the script. And then for Tim, it's never that way. It's always like, he'll look at the script, he'll have notes, and we meet with him every day before he shoots a scene. And we go over what's coming up in other episodes he's not directing, so he understands what the motivations of the characters and any points that are really important to cover in terms of like, oh, actually, that little thing there comes back in episode 7, so we need to make sure that's really like focused on. So he's very,
he's good, and also he has what we call it the tuning fork. Like if there's part of a script he doesn't get or he has problems with, we're like, all right, we gotta fix that.
It reveals something to you.
It just it reveals something where you're like, oh, okay, and you just have to. And I think again, because we've been doing it long enough, we're like, okay, let's just get in there and get under the hood and try to figure it out. So I think it's been a. I would say if you had asked us 30 years ago who would be the director we kind of vibe with the most, I don't think Tim Burton would have been the guy, but it's.
But even though we've always loved
his movies. Yeah. You know, we always talk about we love Ed Wood. The first dailies I ever watched in Hollywood, Miles and I went to film school at USC, and we had internships in the summer, and I interned at Disney Touchstone, which made Ed Wood. So the first dailies I ever watched were Ed Wood.
Well, before you leave the last video store, I'd love you to pick up a couple of Tim Burton movies, maybe a movie each. Would Ed Wood be one of the ones you pick up?
Yes, absolutely.
I think for me, Edward Scissorhands. That to me is the movie I remember watching before I left to England to go to film school and just loving. I just think there's a moment where he's in the bedroom and the looking through the aquarium and the fishes, the shadows are on the wall. It's just like so beautiful, and the soundtrack is just.
It's incredible.
Inspired. So I love that movie.
It's romance through the spookiness.
Yeah.
Staff pick.
Well, before you leave as well, I usually love to give it a staff pick recommendation to my guests here from my staff pick shelf. And I always love to give something Australian, especially if we've got international people here.
Okay.
And especially a film that I think would pair really well with Wednesday. And like what you've been talking about at finding Wednesday as a teenager. And there's this great Australian film called Girl Asleep.
Drama.
Have you heard of this film? No. It's from 2014 by Rosemary Meyers, who's primarily like a theater director. And it is a surreal and absurd coming-of-age film of a girl attempting to navigate those same kind of in-between teenage years as Wednesday, but through this kind of fantastical dreamscape. Like it's absurd in a way that I think a lot of films in this genre are afraid to kind of embrace. I think it would be something that you both really enjoy and pair so well with Wednesday.
Excellent, thank you. Check
My
it out.
pleasure. Thanks for joining me in the last video still, boys.
Yeah.
My absolute pleasure having you in here.
Thanks.
The last video store.
So that was our chat with Al and Miles, the creators of Wednesday. Genuinely, how sick was that? Like, that was such a fun talk to be able to get deep on guys that in such a rare field of creators of sequels could not have been more exciting for me. An area of fascination, an itch finally scratched. Pleasure to talk with them. Wednesday, I've been watching it to prepare for these talks with them. Wednesday is season 2 is currently on Netflix. The first part is out. The second part is coming out, I think, very, very soon. This week. Comes out on September the 3rd, which is a Wednesday. How aptly and apropos. So that was a little bonus episode for you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, because I got a heck of a lot out of it. Until next time, I'll see you at the movies.